with a straight draw or flush draw, or he could have something better, maybe even Broadway already. The turn is the deuce of spades, it's a brick. After getting called on the flop, I'm done reffing big hands. I check. The opponent alleviates my concern that he could have two pair or better, as he checks back, indicating he likely has one pair or worse. The river's the jack of clubs, putting 4 to the straight on board. There's an opening for us to represent Broadway. I might have played an ace-king type of hand the same way after this point. I take a shot, betting 90 to steal it. The opponent might be inclined to fold nearly everything in his range that doesn't include a king. The only issue is that he'll still have king-queen or king-10 type of hands. He raises to 200. Even if he's bluffing, it's safe to assume that he's going to have 8-high beat. There's no choice for us. I fold. Boredom causes me to slightly deviate from my normal pre-flop strategy and lose a decent amount of money that wasn't necessary. I switch tables, but we've got 8-6 suited on the button. Under the gun +1 raises to 30. He's a good player named Nick, who's been featured in a handful of previous episodes. I've known him for several years. The hijack calls. This is another combo that we should be folding the vast majority of the time under these conditions, but playing this isn't going to lose much money in the long run, especially when there isn't a ton of 3-betting happening from the players behind us. I call to see a flop. 3 of us are contending for the pot. We're in position. The dealer puts out king 8-5 with 2 hearts and a spade. We've got middle pair and some backdoor draws. Pre-flop aggressors naturally want to bet king high flops on dry boards like this one. Under the gun +1 fires for 30 again. The hijack gets no piece of it, as if he was swinging at a Wakefield knuckleball. He folds. There are quite a few cards that can come out that'll help us, plus we're in position getting a good price. I call one time. The turn is the 8 of clubs, giving us trips. It's a dream. The situation gets significantly better for us as the opponent increases his bet size to 150. It's almost the size of the pot. There should be almost no combos that he'll have containing 8s except ace-8, 9-8, and 8-7 at diamonds exactly, because the 8 of hearts, clubs, and spades are all accounted for, and he shouldn't be playing the offsuit versions of those combos. The main hands I'm concerned about losing to are pocket kings and pocket 5s, but that's still only 9 total combos that have us beat at the moment. I call to conceal the strength of our hand and allow the opponent to continue bluffing if he has air. I'll pull the trigger on the next street if we get a good opportunity. The river's the deuce of diamonds. It's the perfect card for us to get max value. Like a lazy Uber driver, I'm delighted that the opponent decides to take himself to Value Town so that I don't have to make the trip right now. He bets 400. It's another huge bet. If he'd only do this with trips or better, there'd be no reason to raise, but the opponent could reasonably think that he has us crushed if he's holding pocket aces, ace-king, or even king-queen, because I would have 3-bet with aces, kings, or ace-king, and I'll sometimes raise turn with trips. If the opponent has aces or ace-king, he should be able to call a raise. I go for it, raising to 1,000 to target rockets and top. Under the gun +1, wasn't expecting to see that. Part of me is still worried that we're up against kings full, which the opponent knows that I'll never have after just calling the initial pre-flop raise. It doesn't appear as if Under the gun +1's contemplating a re-raise. If he is, he deserves an Academy Award. It looks like he's genuinely deciding between folding and calling. As more time's passing, I'm feeling better about our hand and rooting hard for a call. About a minute and a half goes by, then the opponent finally mucks.
Good fold, Nick. Good fold.
400, so 600, okay?
Okay.
I like Nick, so I let him know that he made the correct laydown. Even though we don't get our raise paid off, we still win a big pot and acquire our first yellow bird of the day. Nick lets us know that he had to make a tough fold.
Ace of clubs, king of hearts. Wow. Nice fold, nice fold.
This pot gets our stack over the 3K mark for the first time today. I don't envy Nick in that spot with top. I wouldn't want to have ace-king offsuit under the gun +1. We pick up ace-king offsuit under the gun +1. It's 20 minutes later, and now's the perfect time to have it. I raised at 30. A viewer named Norman is in the cutoff. He's already told the table that he wants to make the vlog. He 3-bets to 100. No relation to Norman Chad, by the way. That'd be kind of weird to have multiple Normans in the family. In an unlikely twist of events, though, the cutoff is, however, a distant cousin of Gnome named Gnorm. The button wants to join the action. He cold calls the 3-bet. We're all playing deep. Ace-king should be best in this situation. I don't want to call and play from out of position, just hoping to actually make a hand. I 4-bet to 520 to put the pressure back on the cutoff to see if he really has something he wants to play or if he was just messing around. The latter seems to be truer. The cutoff folds. The button doesn't want to play a 4-bet pot either. He folds as well. We win a couple hundred without seeing a flop. Our stack climbs to almost 3,400. We're up about $900. Next, we're dealt 7-6 suited under the gun +1. We can mix in raising or folding. A raise to 30. Norm's cousin Norman calls. The big blind calls as well. He just got bluffed in a big pot and might be tilting a little. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes King 5-3 with 2 hearts. It's our second straight flush draw of the day. The big blind checks. We were the pre-flop aggressor and have the nut advantage since we're the only player in this situation who could have pocket kings. I bet 50 to build this pot up for when we eventually hit our massive draw. Norman wants me to win more money. He calls. The big blind calls as well. It took over 6 years to capture my first hold'em straight flush on the vlog. That was just a few months ago when I made a 6-card royal flush. Can I hit another straight flush here? The turn is the king of diamonds, so we don't make it happen yet. The big blind checks. Our flop bet got called in 2 spots, so there's a good chance at least one of our opponents has a king, but we know the cutoff wants to make the vlog, so he could have stuck around lighter than normal, and the big blind was getting a good price, plus he might be on tilt. He could have called wider than normal as well. I continue repping a king or better. I bet 170 to weed out most hands worse than trips. The cutoff isn't in a rush to make a decision. He thinks over his options carefully before ultimately folding. The big blind doesn't believe the story that we're trying to tell. He calls. Maybe he has trips, or maybe he's calling on the lighter side since he's closing the action. It's certainly possible that he has a better heart draw than us. The river is the ace of spades, resulting in another missed straight flush draw. Again, we had way too many cards that would have given us a big hand. When we flop middle pair on a king high board, we drill 2 outers immediately, but when we have 12 outs twice, the universe shuts the door in our face. You know what happens when one door closes though, right? The window opens. The big blind checks, giving us an opportunity to steal this one. Another high card on the board isn't good for the big blind. He'll never have aces, kings, or ace-king when he just flashed the initial pre-flop raise. He probably would have check raised on the flop with a set or 2 pair as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him show up with a missed heart draw or pocket pair like 9s, 8s, or 7s. Those hands, worse than trips, will absolutely hate facing a third bet. I triple barrel betting 250. I didn't need to bet too much to get a better high card hand or third pair to fold. 250 should look like we're trying to milk the opponent and he'll perhaps be more willing to fold. Instead, the big blind check raises to 750. He only has 13-15 total, so he's got 565 behind. My first thought is that I shouldn't have emptied the clip against someone who was just bluffed minutes ago, because then he can do something like this and I'll have to fold even if he's bluffing. My next thought is that if he's doing this as a bluff, perhaps we can re-bluff him. Even though he only has 565 remaining, that's enough for him to fold to a 3-bet jam if he only has, let's say, queen jack of hearts or pocket 7s that we just can't beat. Not only could he be weak, even if he's somehow towards the top of his range is capped. If we 3-bet rip it for just a few hundred more, it'll look like we've got the absolute nuts. We could definitely have pocket kings, ace king, and maybe even aces full, although we would have checked aces on the turn. Still, the big blind just won't have those hands. I get as gutsy with the play as I've ever gotten, and I 3-bet jam for 13-15 effective, knowing my opponent has very little behind. There's no snap call, so it's unlikely we're up against a full house of any sort. Honestly, if I was in his shoes, against certain players, I even fold 5s full of kings in this spot because it's so rare that someone 3-bet jams on the river when their opponent doesn't have much behind. I've never tried to attempt anything like this, but I've often been in similar situations when I've actually had the nuts or something close to it, and the opponent realizes that I can never be bluffing when I'm jamming for such a small amount more, and the opponent will fold a monster, even though they're getting great odds to call because they reasonably want to save money. Maybe this isn't the best spot to make this move since the opponent just got bluffed and was shown it, especially now that he's taken his time with the decision. It seems like he wasn't check raising as a bluff on the river after all. He probably has trip kings. In poker, when you attempt these wild moves, you're either going to look like a genius when they work, or you're going to look like a complete moron when they fail. Today, I fall on the moron side. The opponent calls.
Alright, try to get a Hail Mary bluff through. It didn't work.
No, not this time, man.
I thought you had a king, but I just thought you didn't have ace king and didn't have a full house.
Behind.
Yeah,
Come on.
that's why I thought it was going to be more believable, man. Nice end.
I get too ambitious, trying to make a crazy bluff that blows up in my face. Not only do I lose a huge pot in an embarrassing way, I go from being up almost 900 to being stuck 700. The profit completely evaporates. Now I'm in the hole when I could have just folded after betting 250 on the river to remain up several hundred. After adding on for 700 and then an additional 200 on top of that, we pick up ace queen in the cutoff over an hour and a half later. I raised to 30. We're playing short-handed at the moment. The button 3 bets to 100. The big blind is a new player at the table. He cold calls. We're not quite at the top of our range, but we're close. I call for 70 more. 3 of us are seeing the flop. It comes King Jack 10 rainbow. We've got the nuts with a lot in the middle and multiple opponents. The big blind checks. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. We should have sets, 2 pair combos, aces, and top a good percentage of the time. The button down bets is 60. The big blind is getting too good of a price to exit at this juncture. He calls. There are a lot of cards that will either pair the board and downgrade us or scare opponents from wanting to put more money in the pot on future streets. We need to get as much money in now as possible while we know that we're best. I raised to 400 to hopefully induce a shove from the button, who only has 800 total. The button is French. You can tell by the way that he says, "Oh yeah." If we win this one, we'll be redeemed and we'll get unstuck. The big blind folds. We snap call. The opponent disappointingly shows that he flopped the straight with ace-queen offsuit as well. I thought that we were about to make a lot of money. Instead, it's a chops pot. The run out doesn't matter since neither of us have backdoor draws. We split the big blind's money, and it's not nearly enough to get us out of the hole. I played for an hour and a half longer, but don't get anything going before racking up. Played for 7 hours today, lost $1,060, and didn't have to lose today. Just kind of forced it there with our hands. Thought it was kind of a fun spot, and didn't work out. Not super unsurprising, but sometimes I'll do that, and just people just fold like trips. So thought it was kind of creative, but maybe I got a little bit too creative, a little bit too bored, and didn't pick the right guy to do that. He had just gotten bluffed, so I think he was ready to call or go home, and that made it much worse. Anyway, been kind of a slow few sessions. Hopefully I can get back on the right track with the Win World Championship coming up. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. This episode, I'll be honest, wasn't particularly interesting other than me trying to make that move that didn't work out. And the reason that I made it was partly because I just had been running really cold for several sessions in a row, and I had gotten kind of bored. And that's not a good excuse for doing that kind of a thing, but it just happens. But the next like 10 videos is probably gonna be my favorite stretch of poker vlogs that I've ever made. So I can't wait to share that with you guys. It's gonna cover everything that happened during the WPT World Championship and the best month that I've ever had. And right now I'm gonna share with you guys how my year went for 2023. Usually I'll do a much bigger breakdown of kind of my stats, but for now I'll just kind of share this with you guys. I ended up winning $259,000. The year got off to the worst, most nightmarish start that I could have possibly imagined. Lost $191,000 in February. I was just playing the biggest games of my life, and they went as poorly as possible at the lodge. I got wrecked over 3 sessions. I actually lost about $300,000, but I had, 60 to 70% of myself. So my portion of the loss was $200,000. And then I really thought that I would have a losing year at that point. I typically don't like to play that big to start out the year, because if it goes poorly, you have to spend the rest of the year catching up. And I just thought I had no shot to do that. But luckily I had a great March in Cambodia. April, I won over 30,000, and that was when I had my biggest cash game win ever. I actually won about 68,000 in one cash game session, but I only had 40% of myself. And then May, I had 100% of myself in my first major final table. So I final tabled the WPT Gardens event and cashed for 125,000, and that was my first ever six-figure score. Then in June, I didn't have a good WSOP, and I had one of my biggest losing sessions of the year. I lost 15,000 at Bellagio in a high-stakes game, and yeah, and then July, things started coming back together. August, not too much happened. September, I had a good month. I think of cash games, not really sure exactly what happened in September and October, but I guess I did pretty well in cash. And then November, I had just kind of a break-even month. And the next episode is actually the last November session that I played, and it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to share that with you guys. And then December, I absolutely crushed it. It was by far the best month that I've ever had playing poker, and you guys will see.
Woo! Ooh, bro. Oh, sick, come on, no, sick, boom, boom, boom. Bro, that's the first time I've ever finished first place, you know, in an MTG ever in my life. So, I think it is anyway, I can't remember after finishing. I've had like a couple of second places and a couple of third places. I don't think I've ever had a first place. Might only be the $64, so it means a lot more than $64 to me. The truth to me that I can do it.